everyone. Welcome back to our show. We are really excited and thrilled to have our guests on the show today. Today, we are going to be joined by Jessica Bishop, who has a wealth of experience in cybersecurity. Jessica started her career as a military police officer and a police investigator, and then worked as a bids and contract manager. She is also proficient in a variety of programming languages and security tools. She broke into the industry, which I'm really excited. We're going to be talking today with her about how she broke in, but she broke into the industry as a SOC analyst. And today we're going to be chatting with her about some of those challenges of breaking into that industry and what it looked like, as well as some of the cybersecurity trends that she is seeing. So without further ado, Erica, are you ready? Let's get her on the show.
Let's do it.
Woohoo! Welcome, Jess.
Jess, we're so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. This is exciting.
It's awesome. I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while, so we're so thrilled to have you on today. But before we jump into all of the questions that we have lined up for you, can you take a couple minutes and just tell the community a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I mean, you did a great job kind of explaining my intro into who I was, military investigations, corporate world, and into cybersecurity. I am not very proficient anymore at programming languages because I'm just out of practice, but y'all know how that goes.
Totally get it.
I started my journey into the industry in 2020. It was one of those, I think everybody had those realizations in 2020. They're like, I'm going to do something different. I can't do this anymore. And I'm like, cybersecurity, I'm going to do that. And, started that journey. And it's been a challenge.
It is a challenge. It's such a challenging field.
But I will say, Jess, I got to give you props because you, my dear, you stayed at it and you networked your tail off. And I will say it paid off. Jax and I both loved following your journey. We're so excited, to see where you are today and to continue to follow your journey and all that you're going to accomplish. So, I mean, this is amazing for me, having had conversations with you early on about, where you were currently, what you were doing to get ahead, to position yourself. And honestly, just to see all that you've accomplished is just wonderful. So I gotta give you props before we dive any further. I just think it's absolutely incredible what you've been able to accomplish. So without further ado, let's just jump into your early years. Like you spent them in law enforcement, you secured the physical world, right? So security still nonetheless. Then cybersecurity, now we're focusing on the digital landscape. So how do you think that your background, let's just say in security overall, really impacted your career progression, but also and shaped you as a professional, having gone with, security, but through a different lens? Did that support your transition? I just want to kind of hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, when I first got out of the military, I was like, I'm not having anything to do with security, whatever, I'm done with this. But I got to missing it. There's just something about helping people. And for me, a lot of the corporate jobs seemed a little silly for me. I mean, in a way, not the businesses themselves. I mean, everybody provides good services, products, whatever they're doing, but what people would consider an emergency. I was like, nobody's bleeding, nobody's on fire, everybody's okay. What emergency is this? Oh no, we're 5 minutes late with the report, So, kind of navigating the corporate world after the military, it brought me back to security because I enjoy helping people and I enjoy making a difference, even if it's for one sysadmin. I mean, that's worth it to me. And security, no matter what field, is kind of a thankless job, and that's okay, because we know what the repercussions are without it, and I'm okay with that, but the whole transition really helped me because security is still security, whether it's physical or digital. And both of those are hitting each other so much right now. I think it's getting harder and harder to separate the two, really. And if you try to just secure physical, there's a digital portion you're going to miss out. And if you just secure digital, there's a physical portion you're going to miss out on. So, and then the corporate side helped me with that transition because it helped me navigate, with the bids and proposals and contracts. It helped me navigate through all levels of an organization and figuring out what's important to different levels and how to talk to different people at different levels. And really all of it has been such a help.
Yeah, it sounds like you took a lot of the soft skills that you learned too in the military and you transferred it over into what you're doing now. And I think that you did an amazing job in providing that perspective of you've got physical security, you've got cybersecurity, but ultimately it's security and you need all of it. Like you can't have a really good like server, for example, because any servers I went into in Las Vegas, they have the what's the server center that's out in Las Vegas?
The data center.
The huge data center. I got to tour that. And they have like bulletproof glass, like guys with full automatic weapons. Yeah. A whole deal. Right. And that was like my first experience, but it's because that's valuable data, that's valuable information. And if you don't have the physical security, how are you going to protect the cybersecurity? So
exactly. You can't separate it anymore. You just can't.
No. Not at all. It's layered security. So, okay. So you mentioned that, or Erica mentioned this, like watching your journey. You have an awesome journey. You're really active on LinkedIn. I think we met through another cybersecurity community, which is awesome. And you were in a community trying to break in, and you were really like, and you actually broke into the industry because you met somebody in the community who helped you land the job that you have now. But you definitely had your challenges. And I can imagine you were probably even questioning, is this the right field for me? Or maybe just like questioning, am I going to be able to get a job in this field? I know a lot of people question that. So from your perspective, what were some of the challenges, some of the biggest challenges that you face in your career journey into the cybersecurity field? And then out of those challenges, what did you do to keep yourself on that course to land that job?
Yeah. So coming from the military, when you're in the military and you want to learn a skill, you go to a class or a school, learn the skill and do the job. I did not realize that's not how the civilian world works. So when I started my journey, I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I do this? I didn't know. So I was like, well, where can I figure this out? I'll just ask somebody. So I got on LinkedIn and I was like, okay, security analyst near me. And there was a CEO or a CIO who lives closer to me. And I was like, this person looks nice. I'm going to hit her up. So I just messaged her, and I'm so glad she was willing to take the time and kind of walk through things with me. And from there, I'm like, okay, so networking seems to be part of this, but I still didn't really get networking. I was kind of afraid of it because, it wasn't something I was familiar with or comfortable with. So around probably 8 months later, I'd watched some webcasts. I'd kind of chimed in on some webinars and maybe made a few comments here or there on LinkedIn. But Gerald Auger was actually the first person I was brave enough to talk to within the community. And I was like, hey, I liked your video on this. Can you tell me more about this? And he was actually the one that introduced me to you, Jax, because it was a very military to security specific question. And that's when you were like, no, you got to think about it less physical and more digital, which was true because I didn't know how to think about that. I don't have the tech background. So for me, I was like, okay, well, I got to start thinking about this differently. So that, networking was probably my biggest first challenge to get over. The second one was actually the non-tech background. There was a lot to catch up on. I was like, oh my gosh. And I tried the help desk route, but around here, they're paying like $12 an hour. I'm a grown up and I got a family. I can't take $12 an hour for a job, especially with the type of schedules some help desks keep. I'm like, I can't do that. I'd pay more in childcare than I would actually, make. So I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do about this? I was already going to school for the computer information systems through the GI Bill. So I was like, okay. And I was worried at first. It was one of those, am I made for this? Can I get over this hurdle? Is anybody going to take me seriously?
Yeah.
My husband actually really helped a lot with that because he's been in IT for 20 years. And there's things I ask him about and would ask him about. And he's like, I don't know. I got to look that up. So I was like, okay, maybe it's one of those things, and that also went along with networking because then I could start asking senior people in the community. I'm like, what do you think of this, this, and this? Nobody had all the answers, and they really got me to thinking. The whole community got me to thinking and realizing that nobody's going to have all the answers. Nobody. It's too big of a field, So that was another challenge. And then realizing how big the field actually was another challenge, and trying to narrow down what I wanted to do from there. I did go in with the whole, I want to be a pen tester, because the original job I wanted to do, I couldn't find anywhere because I think it's been automated since then. It's like going through bank, originally I heard about it years ago. It was like going through bank transactions and seeing which ones are anomalies from the other ones to kind of detect for fraud. I think a lot of that's been automated because I couldn't find this job I'd heard about years ago. So I was like, okay, well, pen testing sounds fun. And I'm like, okay, it is cool, but there's more to it than that. And I think a hard part for me, and what actually delayed a bit of my journey, was getting too spread out. Instead of focusing in on one subject, it's like, this is cool, I'm going to look at this. This is cool, I'm going to look at this. This. And then you have 5 million classes you're signed up for on Udemy and all those other places, and you don't start any of them because you're so spread out. And so yeah, getting into the industry, those were some of my major challenges, as well as from a financial standpoint. Because I have some medical needs in my family, I couldn't just go out and buy the classes and buy the extra things, buy the certification attempts. I couldn't do it. And, for some people, $400 for a certification attempt, and if you don't pass it, oh, well, I couldn't afford to even chance that. And it would be frustrating when I would be on LinkedIn and talking with people, and you'd have CEOs in the space pop up and say, well, just go buy this. $300 isn't very much. It's like, it's not very much to you, but for me, that's a lot of money. And I did go to a couple job interviews and they liked me, but they're like, well, you don't have a security plus. I'm like, yeah, I can't afford it. If you hire me, I can get it if you're willing to pay for it, but I can't just go get it. So that was that was frustrating to me. That was one of the things that almost made me kind of say, I guess maybe I should go back to where I can make money, the whole golden handcuffs thing. And that actually ended up being another hurdle, because I think culturally, with the whole procurement response, people like an employee who's going to be there long term. And when people saw that I was obviously trying to transfer into another industry, I couldn't get a job. I went 8 months without work because people would say oh, well, you're not ready for this job, but you're going to pass on this job eventually. So,
Yeah, they're worried about the time. I mean, it's no surprise to organizations spending X amount of money on turnover. Hiring is costly, but also departures are costly. But I think, Jess, if we take a step back, I mean, on your journey, I think the biggest thing that is just powerful for our listeners and our viewers is that there are so many avenues where you can take cybersecurity. And depending on who you go to and who you speak to, they're going to give you different advice, different paths. And I think what you experienced firsthand was almost being a little too open-minded of you know what? I'm open to any and all opportunities, and let me just see what sticks. And you know, that approach may work for some. And I think what you realized was, hey, let me focus on this, and then I will let that kind of naturally morph, and I'm going to ride the
Mhm.
wave and see what else comes out of this. So I want to kind of pivot. You know, you're a SOC analyst today. SOC
Yeah.
analyst is a very highly coveted role. I mean, this is something that Jackson and I get tons and tons of emails about and LinkedIn messages. I want to be a SOC analyst. What do I do? So honestly, I'm here to ask you the question: what does a SOC analyst do day to day? Let's demystify this position.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's going to vary from
Absolutely.
organization to organization.
And day to day, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and for me, working for an MSP/MSSP, however, everybody has a different way they want to say it, versus a dedicated SOC. You know, I don't have the dedicated SOC experience, but from my experience, we get the various alerts from different customers. We go through them and see what should and shouldn't belong there. You know, because there's a lot of false positives. There's a lot of alerts that you're like, okay, we've seen this a million times, and when you investigate it, you're like, okay, it's the same. But then you have to learn to be quicker at it and kind of go through and learn to recognize the ones that are different. So there's that aspect of it. Which is fun. I love it because that's as close to what the original job is that I had anticipated. And I had no idea that would be that way. Originally, I was like, SOC work, ew, but then I got into SOC work. I'm like, no, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. It's working a lot with your team. A lot of open communication with your team is so important. I mean, I guess you could be somebody who kind of sits back and keeps to yourself, but I don't think you're going to have a lot of success in the SOC that way. But yeah, it's communicating. It's communicating with the customers. It's being okay with reaching out to a customer at 3 a.m. and saying, "Hey, I'm seeing this. What do you think?" And say it in a way that doesn't panic them, because they're already getting a call at 3 a.m. They're going to be upset anyway, and then they're going to be worried. And if you go, "Oh no, things are blowing up," they're just going to panic, and you can't do that to anybody. You gotta be calm and cool and collected about it, and it's tuning systems. I know for some SOCs they'll tune the firewalls, and we have a knock at our place, so they end up doing all that, but we end up doing like the EDRs and the XDRs and all the other multiple systems that we keep an eye on, and it's really getting those in a place where the alerts you're getting are valuable, and I love that.
I love that. So you hit on a couple of things, like these organizations really, like when they hear they have an incident, we won't dive into like incident versus breach, but there are
Right.
differences there. But they still, like, they hear incidents, and I've been at an organization where they hear incident, but they hear breach, and then just everybody's
Yes.
just freaking out, and it makes it hard when you're in an environment that's like that high stress level to really calm everybody down and kind of just figure out what happened, like and mitigate it as quickly as possible. So in your
Right.
experience of being in this space, being a SOC analyst, working with these organizations, experiencing some of that, what, in your opinion, is some of the most, like, maybe just one or two things that you've seen for the most common mistakes that organizations make when it comes to like
Oof.
cybersecurity in general? And we can
Um,
go on forever about this topic.
oh
So
my
I'm
gosh,
just
there's
like
so
one or
many.
two things,
Got to scratch the surface.
just a little bit.
Okay, I'll erase half my list here. I think some of the biggest mistakes are, for one, having kind of a set it and forget it, or not preparing for security. If you're talking at the point where they're ready to get security, because there is tuning that needs to be done. Otherwise, it's just going to be a bunch of noise, and people are going to start ignoring it from alert fatigue. I think that with that comes basic preparation, like your Active Directory. Get that straight. Make sure that your users have the right permissions, and not too many permissions. Make sure they only have the permissions they need, and get rid of those unused accounts. That would go a long way. not having any kind of incident response plan is a mistake. Because when an actual incident hits, it is pure chaos.
It is. Yeah.
um,
And so many organizations lack an incident response plan.
Oh my gosh. And a recovery plan. It's
Yeah.
And then do they test it?
Yeah.
I mean, we can
yeah.
not to throw a wrench into it, but are
Yeah.
you even testing it? What is it good as it is? I mean, does it need reevaluation every so often? Yes.
Yes. They
So,
created it 5 years ago, and all the
yeah.
leadership that created it's gone except for 2 people.
Yep. No one knows where it is, where it's stored.
Right. You
Yeah.
know, and I know it's hard to keep to 1 or 2, but I think from what I have seen, once there is an incident, is the political infighting that is present in an organization really comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for organizations to be more cohesive at their leadership levels. If a CEO doesn't take security seriously, the people who want to impress the CEO are not going to take security seriously.
Yep.
If the CEO loves security, the people who want to impress the CEO are going to be like, yeah, security, woo! And
tone at the top.
Yeah, tone at the top. And my biggest pet peeve is not being aware of or no inventory of remote administration tools. You gotta, oh my gosh, those things. They're necessary in this day and age, but please keep an eye on them.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. Those are some great tips. Jess, you have dropped some wonderful insights today. I'm going to ask you if any of our listeners or viewers are hearing your story, they're either in a similar position that you were a while back, or they're just really excited about hearing more about SOC analyst positions, what you do, or just curious to pick your brain. What would be the best way for them to reach you?
LinkedIn all the way. I might be a little bit slow responding to messages sometimes because sometimes work just gets crazy and I don't want anything to do with computers after work. But you know, I'll eventually respond. So there.
Awesome. Fair enough. Well, thank you so much, Jess. It's been a pleasure having you. And for all of our listeners and viewers, you know, just a shameless plug, we are on YouTube now, and whatever streaming platform that you are listening or viewing us on, please like, subscribe. We will be dropping new content every other week. Looking forward to seeing you guys soon. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.